Welcome to La Vida Rosa. I'm your host Pinky, and today we're going to talk about the game. So if you would like to see someone talk about a TV show as if these are real lives and real people, because I used to watch a show a long time ago and I have nostalgic feelings about it and I just loved it, watching it all over again because it's on Netflix now, just like I have with Moesha, and I am going to do with the rest of these shows they put on Netflix, then just stay tuned. But before we begin, I would like for everyone to check out my website, LaVidaRosaStyle.com, where you can find cute accessories like the ones I'm wearing right now, my ears, and as well as my lashes. Okay. Like, comment, and subscribe. And without further ado, let's get into this video. I loved this show. So first, let me give y'all a little bit of background on the game for those who have never seen it, or maybe this was your first time watching it on Netflix. The game is a spin-off of Girlfriends. I think Girl Melanie was Tracy Ellis Ross's cousin or something like that. I remember their little crossover episode a little bit, but don't quote me on none of that. I guess I should have looked that up before I made this video. But this show came out almost 15 years ago in 2006. OMG, I can't believe how old this show is. That completely threw me off when I read that, but then again, it completely makes sense because I was definitely in high school watching this show. Another thing that threw me off is there are 9 seasons of the game. 9 seasons? So that means I fell off of this show like definitely by season 4 or 5. I can't remember, but I was one of the people that when they canceled the show, I signed the petition. I was in love with the show, and then when they canceled it, I was like really hurt. So I signed the petition for it to come back to BET, and when it came back, it was just like kind of felt a little flat. I believe I did watch at least 4 and 5 because by the time it came back, I was a freshman in college. And so we would have like sort of like watch parties. We would watch it together because we was excited that it came back. But then it just wasn't as good as it used to be. And it's almost like, dang, I only acknowledged the first 3 seasons. I'm not mad they only put the first 3 seasons on Netflix because that's the only ones I truly acknowledge. Because the rest of them was a little bit dry. The first 3 seasons were just as good as I remembered. I was just as invested, even though I knew what was gonna happen. I was so into it, y'all. It's crazy though, because back then obviously I was much younger, so my perspectives have changed like completely. Like, I can't believe I felt the way I felt before and the way I feel now is completely different, because watching this now with more experience and just, you know, just, I don't know, living more, you get to see more, and I'm just like, girl, Melanie and Derwin, their relationship is the definition. If you want to tell somebody what toxic is, just do what Melanie and Derwin did on this show in like season 2, into season 2 and 3. But we're gonna get to that. This show is kind of different in that you got to see certain stereotypes play out about athletes and their wives and girlfriends, and you know what I'm saying, like it's kind of like you kind of wonder how that world works sometimes. So it's interesting to see it play out on a TV show, even though I feel like a lot of the characters, when you first see them, they're very stereotypical. I kind of like how they dive a little bit deeper. You get to see like the layer below and see how they actually live and how they actually, you know what I'm saying? It can't always be gummy drops and rainbows just because you're rich and you make, you know, $50 million, even though that's a nice little sugar on top. I can't even lie. It did have its very campy and corny moments. I mean, it was a CW TV show, let's just be real. You know, a lot of that is like, I call it like the adult Disney Channel. Any type of campy show reminds me like an adult Disney Channel show. Like, you have adult themes, but it's very like over the top corniness. But they also had like their very serious moments, and you know, kind of drew you in and make you root for certain characters and kind of like side-eye other ones. So it was just really good in that way. The campiness kept it fun without being too dark. This show is really like a nostalgic time capsule to me. Like the fashions, even though the fashions are horrible, when you look back and I'm like, oh, he was really dressing like that, it really does show you how people were dressing in like the early 2000s. it was a little it was tragic. It was tragic, a lot of the hairstyles and the clothes, but it's like that's literally, it's a perfect time capsule of that. Also, like, you know, the slang and all that, it's just like that show embodied the early 2000s for me. I'm gonna get into the characters. I was just gonna talk about Melanie and Derwin, but I'm gonna talk a little bit about the other ones too, because they're like very important to the show. I feel like every single one of these couples had a level of toxicity that played out over those 3 seasons. And okay, I'm just gonna get into it. First, I'm gonna talk about Malik and Tasha. So both characters were very like stereotypical black single mother who gets her son to the league, and they're very new money. They throw their money around a lot. You could tell they didn't really have money before football. So when you first see them, you see this like major stereotype, but then once you get to know them a little bit more, you get to see the insecurities that money does not fix. When it comes to Malik, he was a perfect example of if you gave the dumb jock from high school that was popular $50 million and drafted him to the league. He had this false bravado. He was very arrogant, throwing money in people's face, and because he didn't really feel worthy deep down inside. It was him pursuing this relationship with Robin Givens, even though she clearly did not want him at all, but she did this whole fake marriage in order to get clout back off of it. Basically, he completely went along with it knowing that, but still was trying to woo her, and it just screamed insecurity. Because can you imagine a woman like, oh, I'll marry you just to give you like clout and you'll eventually fall in love with me. It's very like Steve Urkel, you know what I'm saying? It showed like a completely, you wouldn't think big arrogant Malik, who feel like he can get any woman in the world and all the women fall out over him, that he would be begging for a woman to love him. So, and also, you know, not to mention his daddy issues. That was like, I feel like that's where a lot of the insecurities might have stemmed from in the first place. Honestly, Malik didn't have much growth within these 3 seasons. He might have got it later on. I'm sure within 9 seasons he grew. But in these 3 seasons, he was like, the thing that grew most about him is in the first season, he couldn't really act. No shade. It wasn't. Like, he was kind of falling flat with the acting, but you could see his growth and his comedic timing was hitting more. But in the beginning, I was just like, ooh, I didn't realize how cringy the acting was. But to me, the best part about Malik by far is TT. Hilarious. He's the MVP. Give TT all the awards. He was hilarious. He was the perfect comic relief. Anytime something would get too serious, he would pop in and he would just be so funny. He was so lovable. Love TT. Then we have Tasha, who is this beautiful boss black woman who don't take crap from nobody, and I mean nobody. And she got her son to the league. She wants to push her career even further and manage other people, and it was interesting to see her, you know, push herself in that arena. But Tasha raised her son to be like her in so many ways. They're so much alike. They have this false tough exterior. Like I mentioned before, there was a lot of toxic relationships on this show, but their relationship became toxic when she basically was coddling him too much. I mean, he was 26 years old and didn't even have his own place to stay, and he didn't even know how to kick people out of his own house. He needed his mother to handle like very basic adult things that Malik should be able to handle. I mean, he stayed bragging about being this $50 million kid, so he has the means, but he literally wants to stay with his mommy. And neither one of them even saw an issue with it until, of course, it took a woman to point it out to Malik that you are literally a man-child. So I guess we did see a little bit of growth with Malik in that area. I mean, simply just, you know, kind of like detaching himself from his mother, firing her and finding his own management. But to me, he's still low-key dependent on TT to do everything. So not much change. Tasha can barely keep any sort of relationship because she is not able to be vulnerable. One of her catchphrases was emotional walls, emotional walls. And that's because she wouldn't let anybody in, even when people clearly had her best intentions at heart. She just finds it so hard to open up. And she sabotaged those relationships in a lot of ways. She started off by pushing away her love interest, Coach T. Now, fine, Rick Fox. I'm gonna pause to say, Rick Fox at his big age was still just as fine as anybody else on that show. I mean, he was low-key giving Derwin a run for his money. That Rick Fox, he just really wanted to love her, but she constantly would do things to kind of push him away. And then their final straw was her getting fired, and she thought Rick had something to do with it. And she just would not give him the benefit of the doubt. But I have to say, her singing Take a Bow in that office, that's like one of the campy moments that I'm talking about. That's kind of cheesy and corny, but to me that was one of the most classic moments on the show. That was one of the most funniest. Like, if I could post a clip, I wish I would, but Netflix would flag me almost immediately as soon as I upload this video. But that was like one of my favorite moments of the show, where she's standing ovation. She sang it like an auntie. She was like besties with Kelly. Like, they were, you know, if you watch the show, you know they're inseparable. Even though she tries to act like she don't care about Kelly, she loves Kelly. When she got fired from her job, she expected Kelly to quit her job as well, even though Kelly is going through a divorce and she needs money. She just expected her to up and quit the job, and you know that's absolutely ridiculous and childish and petty. So she decided to be ridiculous, childish, and petty and hook up Jason with another beautiful woman behind her back, knowing that Kelly low-key still had feelings for Jason. Tasha completely deserved to get knocked out. It was hilarious when Kelly like literally knocked Tasha out at Melanie and Derwin's wedding. They didn't even get to be in the wedding because she knocked her out in her own house. And Malik was like, you actually let a white girl knock her out? It was funny because this whole season Tasha acts so hard and act like she was so tough and I kill you. But you got knocked out by little Kelly. Kelly more tougher and harder than you. Like, that just goes to show you your whole persona was just all talk. So let's move on to Jason and Kelly. Another stereotype. You have a gold digger. Kelly, she admitted herself that she was a gold digger, that she only got with Jason for his money. And then you have a football player that is very controlling over his wife. Their relationship was completely built on gold digging and manipulation on both ends. And Jason completely used money to control Kelly's every move. Now, far be it for me to feel sorry for a gold digger. You know what I'm saying? You kind of know what you're signing up for when you get with someone only for money. The gold digger and the person, the sugar daddy or whatever, I feel like they both know what it is. And so he's gonna like make you work for this money in one way or another. So, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. But Jason had 85 million. I never realized like how much Jason literally had. We always heard Malik say like 40-50 million dollar kid, but Jason, you know, he was like, he acted like, shoot, he was a grocer or something. Like, he was really penny pinching. And I was thinking, well, maybe he's at the end of his career. Jason had $85 million in the bank and didn't want to give his child $1,000 for her birthday party, but had Kelly trying to make $1 after 15 cents. Side note, I love the accurate portrayal of a white mother not knowing how to do her biracial child's hair, because Britt Brat's hair looked a mess at least season 1 and 2, and maybe a little bit of 3. I would have been left Jason. I would have never been with Jason in the first place, honestly, but I would have been left him. Jason was the absolute worst. I mean, he took out all his anger out on Kelly. The fact that he wasn't like the football star that he used to be, like he literally like unleashed on her whenever he got angry, whenever Kelly left him, like for good reason. He tried to turn her daughter against her. He had the nerve to play holier than thou against everybody, but was doing steroids behind the scenes and trying to hide it from Kelly, and in the process made her feel terrible about her body, like he wasn't interested in her anymore, instead of just simply confessing the truth. And that's what really I feel like that's what really really threw a wrench in their relationship, because he lied about that. And Kelly was she just wasn't with it, because he also was like very critical of her brother, who was a drug addict, and here you are using steroids.
Not to mention, Jason rode Kelly so hard, he literally sent her to the hospital for exhaustion. And there was another point in time where he literally, Loki was trying to prostitute his own wife out in order for him to get a football deal. Just trash all the way around.
So he realized that he wanted Kelly back, and when he tried to pursue her, he got mad that she couldn't be bought. I mean, he finally spent a little bit of money on her, bought her some cars and, you know, name brand clothes, and she just couldn't be bought. Then he went for the jugular and tried to get full custody. He knew he blew it eventually and gave her what he wanted. I feel like at different points they wanted each other back, but they kept missing each other. And by the time Jason had really moved on with old girl, I forgot Stacey Dash's name on the show, but it was Stacey Dash.
For whatever reason, she really wanted him back. I don't know why, but he was already gone at that point.
It was what it was. She had fine Jason Momoa. I didn't even realize that was Jason Momoa at the time. I guess I didn't know who he was back then. She had fine Jason Momoa as a boyfriend. But then he got a little abusive and Jason had to knock her out. He ended up going to jail. And then she was trying to be his ride or die, but he didn't want her. He wanted Stacey Dash. So that's where their story ended. You know, at the end of the day, Kelly was this long-suffering wife. And her biggest flaw was that she was a gold digger. She lost herself in Jason. The entirety of her life was Jason. She didn't really have anything outside of him. So her character was funny, but once Jason left her, like I liked Kelly. I liked her personality or whatever on the show, but outside of Jason, there really wasn't much left for Kelly. Like, the thing that made Kelly interesting kind of was wrapped around Jason in a way, or her just being like his footstool, or having to adhere to these crazy, you know, financial burden that he put upon her. So outside of that, there wasn't really much interesting about Kelly.
I mean, even her most prized role in life, being the leader of the Sunbeams, was wrapped around Jason. She was a great friend to Melanie and Tasha, but she just really didn't have much outside of serving others. So someone pointed out to me another way that Jason was trash. He made some anti-black comments. He always felt like he was above like the rest of you Negroes. That was his attitude. He would mock Tasha's accent. He would say that she was rubbing off on Kelly and like, I didn't marry a white woman for all this. And, you know, basically, I feel like he represented a lot of football players' attitudes when it comes to marrying someone of another race, because they consider black women to be, you know, too sassy, have too much mouth, and they're looking to dominate. So they choose a woman of another race. And yeah, I felt like that was a great representation of the way some of these football players think. So while his character was funny, he was just trash overall.
Yeah, their relationship was just completely toxic though. But nobody's relationship on this show is not even close to the level of toxicity that Melanie and Derwin reached. I don't know how I didn't realize how terrible their relationship was on this show. I didn't remember. I knew they had their ways. I knew they, you know, it was like the will they won't they sort of relationship, but they wore me out. I was tired. Like, I write notes for all of my rant videos, in case y'all don't know. I literally had to take a break because it was just too much. It was too much toxicity. I was tired. And honestly, I think I have a little PTSD from friends who have had that sort of on again, off again relationship. And it's so annoying to be the person just sitting here on the sidelines, even having to witness it. Because they always come to you for advice, but never take it. And they always end up back together. When I think about their relationship in the beginning, it reminds me of that age old, I don't know if like Whitley and Dwayne are the first like example of this, probably most likely not, but I always think about Whitley and Dwayne whenever I see a couple. Like, you have this selfish, spoiled rich girl with a guy that's like comes from nothing, but he worked his way up and is trying to succeed in life. And usually her parents hate him, and you know, he's actually like a really sweet, nice guy, but you know what I'm saying, he's not worthy to the people around her because she's supposed to be with more of an upper crust dude. But I think Melanie and Derwin were very just endearing in the beginning because both of them seemed to have like the best of intentions. They seemed like their love was pure. You know, Melanie had her own thing. She was in medical school and she wasn't really trying to be a part of like the lifestyle of a football player, but she was thrust into it because, you know, Derwin needed her to be a part of it in order for him to succeed. Side note, I forgot how attractive Derwin was. Derwin was it's between him and Rick Fox for the finest. He might be top 2. He might not be number 2. You know what I'm saying? Like, I forgot. And then I remembered. I'm like, oh, Derwin. But anyway, I could kind of see why Melanie was losing her mind over him.
I feel like this relationship just showed you how money, fame, and, you know, just the entertainment world can really come in and tear apart relationships that were genuine. There's temptation, there's jealousy that comes in, and really other people, the outside world that gets in your ear, and it just changed the whole dynamic of everything y'all have going on.
The relationship really took a turn when Melody went out to eat with one of her old college buddies who turned out to be like this big football star, bigger than Derwin was at the time. He asked her not to eat with him and she did it anyway, and they got pictures together and it was like this big drama. He really got upset with her, and I feel like that was the catalyst for him cheating on her with Drew Sidora.
Not that I'm giving him any sort of excuse for cheating, because he was very sneaky and slimy with the way he was going about going behind Melanie's back and cheating on her with Drew Sidora. So I am not defending Derwin.
So he lied about cheating with Drew Sidora. He claimed he just kissed her, when in actuality they completely went there. And so her finding out the way she did, which honestly, that was one of the biggest moments for the show. I believe that was the end of season 1. That was one of the biggest moments of the show. It completely took a turning point because her and Derwin were the focal point and they broke up. So it was like, everybody was like, oh my goodness. This was the beginning of an on again, off again, obsessive, jealous, dishonest, controlling, resentful, stressful relationship. It's crazy because back then, you know, I was a kid. I didn't really understand. I don't know why I was so forgiving of their, you know, terrible behavior like towards each other and in this relationship, and how they brought the worst out of each other. My perspective has completely changed over the years. I still do think that Melanie and Derwin by themselves are like lovable, but they just get on my last nerve, sort of like a family member. Like, I love you, but you continuously obsessing over this person, you get on my last nerve, and this is the last time I want to hear about it. I hate being around these type of couples because they literally disrupt everyone around them. They don't just disrupt, it's not just, they don't just contain it within themselves. It tends to seep out and hurt everyone around them as well. In reality, Melanie and Derwin, if they would have actually taken time out for themselves, worked on themselves, and came back together, not messing with nobody else, just work on yourself, they probably could have came back together and been a nice, happy couple. They probably could have moved past their issues, but no, they had to go get a rebound. Both of them got a rebound. Derwin's was Janae, hers was Jerome. They completely disrupted these two people's lives for absolutely no reason. But Derwin was way worse because he disrupted hers for the long run. Melanie had Derwin literally fist fighting Jerome, only for her to go show up at his door literally the next day. And honestly, that was the height of the show. The end of season 2 with her knocking on that door, the beginning of season 3, that was like, to me, the climax. That was like the best part of this show was, you know, having to wait the next season to see like what was gonna happen. That's when they really began to fall into like the most utter toxic relationship you could possibly have. I'm gonna give y'all the rundown. So when Derwin opened that door and they decided they was gonna get back together without any sort of conversation, any sort of like discussion. They just decided, boom, we back together. She immediately got her face cracked because it turns out Janae's pregnant. Mind you, back in the day, for whatever reason, I was mad at Janae. Why was I mad at Janae? Janae did nothing wrong. She got ridiculed and hounded and harassed, mainly by Melanie, but a little bit by Derwin, for not getting herself pregnant by herself. Janae had her own, okay? Janae didn't need Derwin's money. In fact, she was low-key settling for Derwin because she possibly could have got someone more rich and famous than him. Why was I and a lot of other people around me, why was we so mad at Janae? Janae did nothing wrong. In fact, Janae is the victim in this situation. When Melanie and Derwin were like really questioning her and like coming at her about being pregnant or whatever, she decided to give Derwin an out and say, look, legally, you can give this child to me and you won't have to care for this child, and just we can pretend like you're not the father or whatever. Derwin obviously was against that because he has a heart and a soul. And Melanie had the nerve to get mad at Derwin because he didn't want to be a deadbeat. Like she was really mad at him for not, this is your way out, Derwin. We can be together, Derwin. I wanted to knock Melanie out so bad. Obviously, Derwin is not the type of man that would just give up his child and not want to be in his life at all. Like, that's just not even in his character at all. And honestly, why would you want to be with a man who would do something like that? But with that being said, I would have left at this point. This is the point where, you know, everything else was for play, but this is getting serious. You about to be somebody's father, and I don't want no parts of that because when you choose to stay with someone who has a baby, you're choosing to be a stepmama indirectly, and you have to be mature enough to still treat this child with love and care that it deserves. And somebody mistook Melanie for being the pregnant girlfriend, and that's exactly why I would not be in this situation, because ain't no way I'm gonna be walking around with a brand new child and people like, oh, when did you have him? Oh no, this is his ex's. I'm not I'm the stepmama. That's too much to explain to every single stranger on the street, and it's just gonna make me angrier and angrier, and it's just gonna be a terrible environment to live in with me. Melanie wanted to pick up where they left off, and that's just impossible. There's a completely new dynamic now, and you are not the priority anymore. There's no way you can be, because it's got to be the child. It's always gonna be the child. And so this is where she became really exhausting. This is where Melanie wore me out, because you are choosing to put yourself in this situation. It is not Derwin's fault. He is doing what he got to do to survive. He doesn't even know what his future is going to be in the NFL, so he can't pay for things the way he used to. He was going to pay for her medical school. He kind of was an Indian giver in that way, but you know, it's understandable. He has a child coming in this world. He doesn't know if he's going to be having the income he used to, so clearly he has to cut you off in that aspect. She literally threw a temper tantrum like a whole child, because Derwin wanted to be a responsible father, citing, and I quote, "Your kid is more important than me. I can't compete with a child." Duh, Melanie. Like, literally, Derwin was like, yeah. And the craziest part is Melanie could easily ask her parents for the money, even though you're going to have to take a little bit of a browbeating. Oh, woe is me. At least you can still go to school, girl. I don't want to hear it. She is so entitled and spoiled and annoying. It's like the worst of her came out that season. So they broke up. They were like on this weird friends with benefits sort of thing. And she decides she wants to hook up with the doctor that she works with, and he played her. So then she decided she wanted to take his player ways and play him and Derwin at the same time. But Derwin found out, and that drove him back to Janae, which is also toxic. Derwin, you can't just go. He completely played with Janae's feelings. This is where Derwin was trash, because he really did yo-yo Janae, not only with this baby, with a relationship. And I'm sure he felt like he was doing the right thing. Like, I want to, you know, be with the woman that's carrying my baby. But you clearly were not over Melanie, and you weren't taking the steps to get over her. So you're mad at Melanie, you run back to Janae. trash. So him and Janae had a little bit of issues. He's a jealous rockhead. We know anytime he gets jealous and angry, he's ready to fight and go off. And so that led to them breaking up. But really, he just wanted Melanie at the end of the day. We all know that. So after his relationship ends with Janae, without any discussion, Derwin runs back to Melanie and proposes. She immediately said yes without any question. And the only thing that bothered her, the only thing that gave her pause, was the fact that the ring was small. How shallow is this relationship? How shallow can you get? Y'all are not even really worried about the major issues that are going to plague you in this relationship, but you're worried about this ring. Derwin literally came back to her after he was like broke down. He don't even know if he's gonna have a career anymore, and this is when you want to like come crawling back to Melanie, even though she went crawling back to him plenty of times as well. Since Melanie is so threatened by Janae and jealous of an unborn child, she pushed up her wedding to upstage a baby. I'm not the first to have your baby, but I want to be the first at something. Melanie proceeded to throw tantrums the entire engagement, and even on her wedding day, she threw a whole tantrum. I mean, everything really did go wrong. She had the little baby ring. Her parents didn't approve of the wedding. The best man got arrested, Jason. She didn't have no bridesmaids because Kelly knocked Tasha out. On top of all that, there ain't no way Melanie should be looking this disheveled at her own wedding. I was like, what do she got on? Now, I know she had the little haircut or whatever, which I thought was cute pretty much the whole season. But on her wedding day, that hair looked a whole mess. So she was trying to upstage his baby, and the baby still upstaged you on your wedding day. Derwin got the call in the middle of their vows that Janae was pregnant, and then he tried to hurry up. Come on, Ralph, let's get this done. Like, who wants to get married after that, Derwin? Shut up. He's such a rockhead. Instead of rushing the wedding, she told Derwin he can go ahead. Go ahead, Derwin. You can go to the hospital. Go ahead. I feel like in her mind, she secretly wanted him to be like, no, baby, I'm going to stay here for you and forget my child being born. But obviously, Derwin did the right thing and ran off. And, she turns around and she's looking as pitiful as possible with this jacked up hair. And I'm supposed to feel bad for you that you got left on the altar and this child stole your day, even though you did everything in your power to upstage a whole baby. It's what she deserves. I felt no pity whatsoever for Melanie in that moment. It's literally what she gets for being so nasty the whole season. Like, she was just terrible and awful and causing a muck for Janae. It didn't even have to be all that. You know what I'm saying? This is the life that you chose. You chose to be with Derwin. I mean, I know Derwin fine. Everybody with eyes can see that. But it ain't worth all the drama, apparently, for you to be sitting up here bawling your eyes out on your wedding day. But you chose that life, okay? The wedding was ruined, but they ended up eloping. I'm sure maybe they ran to Vegas or something and got married after the baby was born. It's crazy because I didn't feel bad for Melanie at all for getting left at the altar. But I low-key was getting ready to shed a tear when they got married. I think it was like maybe the words that Derwin was saying or something, but it kind of touched me. I was like, why am I being touched? They did hit my heartstrings. I don't know why, because we know the happiness will not last. Just because you get married, they don't fix nothing. And even though I don't really acknowledge the seasons after season 3, I do remember the fact that Melanie ended up DNA testing Derwin's son. And so that just makes me think she had literally no growth at all. She's literally trash. Because even though I do think you should get your kids DNA tested, especially if y'all not married or anything like that, ain't nothing wrong with getting a DNA test. The fact that she would be so low down and go behind people's back and test this baby behind everybody's back, and then you got a false negative for him not being the father, and then it turned around and he actually was the father. Yeah, Melanie is the worst. I don't know how the seasons went, but Derwin should have been left her. At the end of the day, Derwin, why would you want to be married to a woman who can't stand the mother of your child, and low-key probably can't stand your child either? Like, I wouldn't have you. You wouldn't be around my child because I don't know what you're going to do behind my back. I don't know if you're going to be pinching his legs, being a wicked stepmother to this child behind my back. I don't know what you're going to do. All right, you guys. Whoa, oh my goodness, I talk forever. This is gonna be a long one, but I want to know what you guys think. Let me know your opinions down below. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? How do you feel about this season? If you're watching it for the first time, I would love to hear your opinion. But the people that are rewatching this, like, how do you feel watching this like 15 years later? Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? I would love to hear your opinion. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Peace.